Right. So today we are going to look at the next section of the module number 3 LEDs. So we look at something called as white LEDs. Okay, it's a very easy topic. There are actually in the syllabus they have given you a lot of topics under white LEDs, but it's very easy. There's not too much of things to explain. Okay, so in this uh, lecture, we are going to understand the requirements of white LEDs. So what should be there when you construct an LED so that you will get a proper white LED with enough intensity or brightness. And then we are going to look at how we can generate white LED or white light by dichromatic sources. We'll explain what a dichromatic, monochromatic, and trichromatic sources are. And then we'll try to see how we can generate the white light by trichromatic sources. Okay. Then we'll also try to understand the temperature dependence of trichromatic sources for the generation of white light. So how the temperature will influence the generation of white light using trichromatic sources. And finally, we'll also look at the advantages and disadvantages of having generation of white light using tetrachromatic and pentachromatic sources. Okay. So although we have a lot of learning objective, this is maybe like 3 or 4 slides per objective. So not that much. Fine. Now coming back or starting with generation of white light. Now when light falls on your retina, there is something called the cone cells. Okay. Now each type of cone cells is sensitive to a particular wavelength. So for example, most of the cone cells are sensitive to red, green, and blue, which are the primary colors. So when depending on the intensity of the light falling on these cone cells, you will perceive red, green, blue in different combination, resulting in a particular color. Okay, and these cone cells are commonly called as cones of retina. Okay, so light is perceived as white light if the 3 types of cones located on the retina of the human eye are excited in a certain ratio, namely with similar intensity. Okay. For example, if you want to perceive yellow light, okay, then your green and red cone cells are excited in some ratio so that you will find your brain will finally understand it as yellow. These cone cells are typically called as cones. Now, for the case of white light, the tri-stimulus values. What do you mean by tri-stimulus values? Red, green, blue. These 3 colors should stimulate your cone cells. So they are called as tri-stimulus values are such that the location of the chromaticity point is near the center of chromaticity diagram. So we'll see in the next slide what a chromaticity diagram and chromaticity point is. Okay. So basically it says that when your cone cells get stimulated, it should have the chromaticity point of that stimulation should be at the center of chromaticity diagram. Now, the creation of white light out of monochromatic visible spectrum emitters can be based on dichromatic, trichromatic, or tetrachromatic approaches, or on approaches of bichromaticity. Okay? So you have different ways of creation of white light using dichromatic, trichromatic, or tetrachromatic. We'll see one by one. This is called as a chromaticity diagram, which I have taken from Wikipedia. Okay, and if you see this diagram, you can see all the colors, and at the middle you have the white color here. Okay, so if the stimulation of your cones are in such a way that it gives a point in this white region, then you will perceive that light as white light. Okay, now if the simulation of the cone cells are in such a way that you see your chromaticity point is somewhere here in the red side, then you will see that light as a red light. Now, if you look at the axis, this is called as X, this is called as Y. It's actually the chromaticity coordinates. So this is a scheme which is developed by the scientist to find out how much intensive is the light for different colors. So if the light XY coordinate lies somewhere here, then you will perceive that light as green light. Okay. Now, what is this chromaticity coordinate? It is the stimulation of each primary light divided by the entire stimulation. For example, for red, green, blue, these are the primary colors. Let's say total intensity of the light that is being for on the cone cells is, let's say 10 lumens or something like that. Let's say R is a value around 3. Green is some value around 6. Blue is some value around 1. Okay, the total values is 10. So the chromaticity coordinate is basically 3 by 10, 6 by 10, and 1 by 10. Okay. So here I have shown only a 2D diagram. You can extend it for 3D diagram with a set coordinate also. So if you see that the maximum chromaticity is for the green light. So basically it will fall somewhere around here, which means you will perceive it as a green light. Okay, so this is called as a chromaticity diagram and a chromaticity coordinate or a chromaticity point. Okay, this is for your general information, but because we will see or we will come upon this term chromaticity in multiple points of our presentation, and we don't want to like check again and again what this chromaticity is. Okay. Now coming to the white lights, what are the requirements of white LEDs? What should be there for white LEDs so that it will give you white light? The first and the foremost is called as luminous efficacy. Next is luminous efficiency. The last is color rendering capability. So what is luminous efficiency? It measures, or it's a measure of how well a light source produces a visible light. Okay, because the light source can produce infrared light, ultraviolet light, or any kind of radiation in the spectrum. Now, if any light source produce visible light, you will say that the luminous efficiency of that source is very high. The luminous efficiency is the measure of brightness. How much bright is the light? If it is too bright, you say the luminous efficiency is very high. The last thing is color rendering capability. It's the ability of light source to reveal the colors of various objects faithfully in comparison with an ideal or natural light source. It's measured by an index called color rendering index. For example, let's say you go to any shop for taking clothes like sari or t-shirt, etc. Now, when you go there and you try to check the exact color of the purchase or the cloth that you have taken, you can see the color only based on the bulb light produced inside that shop. So if that light is having high CRI, which is high color rendering capability, then you will always see the exact color. But if it is of low color rendering capability, you will see a different color, and when you come out of the shop and just try to see it in the sun, you see a color which is totally different from that you have seen inside the shop. That is the color rendering capability. So in the second case, the color rendering capability of the light inside the shop is very less. So this is measured in terms of CRI. So always go to the shop where you have lights which is of high CRI. Now we have seen, we have looked upon these terms monochromatic, dichromatic, and trichromatic. So what do you mean by them? So monochromatic means you have only a single color. Dichromatic means you have two colors. Trichromatic means you have three colors. Tetrachromatic means you have four colors. Pentachromatic means you have five colors. So this is basically the definitions of what a chromatic or mono, di, or trichromatic means. So once if you want to produce white light, or let's say if you want to produce a white color, basically you can do is you can mix your primary colors in equal ratio or in same intensity. That will give you a white color. So what is it needed to give a white LED? So first one, if you look at a dichromatic white source, you will have a blue and a yellow LED. Okay, so you have a blue LED, yellow LED, you mix the colors, and then you get a white light. So this can be done using two different LEDs, or it can be done in a single LED with a system inside, with a chip inside, which will produce both the colors. Okay, this is called as a monolithic LED. Monolithic means you will have a single substrate in which you can produce both yellow and blue light. And if it produces both yellow and blue light in the same intensity, then you will get a white source. There is another way. This is trichromatic white source. So here you are going to have three colors: blue, green, and red. It can be either produced by three different LEDs and then it can be mixed, or you can have a single LED in which you will have a single chip which produces all these colors. And finally, when it comes out, you will see it as a white LED. The last one is tetrachromatic white source. We have also pentachromatic, but if you look at tetrachromatic, you have blue, cyan, green, and red. You have four different LEDs which can be mixed. So these are different ways of producing white light using different ways of white LEDs. Now, the dichromatic, if you compare the different chromatic sources, what's the advantage of each of them? The dichromatic white source has high luminous efficiency. So high luminous efficiency, and it has a poor color rendering capabilities. Okay, poor color rendering means if you are in a room with a dichromatic white source, then the color that you are seeing is not the exact color that it actually has. It might be a different color. So it has poor color rendering capabilities. But it has high luminous efficiency, which means it will produce visible light pretty high. A trichromatic white source can have very acceptable color rendering properties and luminous efficiency is greater than 300 lumens per watt. So if you go to higher trichromatic white source, the color rendering capability is very high compared to dichromatic, and luminous efficiency is also pretty high. But the problem is fabricating trichromatic white source is difficult when compared to dichromatic, and it will be costly. And tetrachromatic sources have higher color rendering capability or color rendering indices, which means tetrachromatic source, if the system is having a tetrachromatic source, it will reveal the color as it is. But again, since you have three different types of color and rendering capability in the substrate, it will have a higher cost. So let's look at the dichromatic sources. So when you are trying to produce a white light using dichromatic sources, as we have seen earlier, you will have two different colors, red or yellow, or of any other combination. And using those colors, we will try to produce white light. These two colors are called as complementary colors or complementary wavelengths. So the white light is generated by the use of two narrow emission bands called complementary wavelengths or complementary colors. So you take two complementary colors and then you try to generate the white light. So can I take any two colors as complementary? No. There are only a specific set of colors which can be taken as complementary colors. Two complementary colors at a certain power ratio result in tri-stimulus values that are perceived as white light. So apart from taking these complementary colors, there should be some ratio in which these two colors should be mixed. Even if you mix the colors in a power ratio of 50%, it might not produce white light. Sometimes you might need to mix the colors in like 60% and 40% power ratio, or 30% or 70% power ratio, and then it will produce the tri-stimulus values which you will perceive as white light. Now, what are these complementary colors? This is given in this graph. So if you look at this, the x-axis, it is basically the wavelength lambda1, and this is the complementary wavelength. So if you want to find out what is the complementary wavelength or complementary color of 460 nanometer, you just look at the corresponding value here, which is around 570 nanometer. Okay. Similarly, if you want to find out for 480 nanometer what is the complementary color, it is around 580 nanometer. So for each wavelength or for each color, there is a corresponding complementary color. And as we said earlier, they should not be mixed in equal proportion, but they should be mixed in some power ratio. And this power ratio is given in this table. This is only for your reference. It might not get asked in your exam, but you should understand what is a complementary wavelength or a color and what is a power ratio. For example, here, if you mixed 440 nanometer and 562.9 nanometer in the ratio, that is, the ratio of power of 562 nanometer to that of 440 nanometer is 1.79. Okay, then you will get a white light. So 1.7 power ratio means if the power of lambda 2 is 100 watt, or sorry, power of lambda 1 is 100 watt, then you should have lambda 2 power as 179 watt. So the ratio is 179 by 100, which is 1.79. And that will give you a proper white light using the LED. Okay. So similarly, you can see the complete table here in both sides. And for each wavelength, what is the corresponding complementary wavelength, so that, and the corresponding power ratio, so that you will get the white light. Now, if you plot the primary wavelength versus the efficiency of the radiation, you see that highest luminous efficiency is at 440 lumens per watt, which is highest luminous efficiency at a wavelength of 445 nanometer. Okay, so if you look at this picture, you see that at this point, which is this point, you have highest luminous efficiency, which means it will give you the best visible light possible. So that is around 445 nanometer. So if you take the primary wavelength as 445 nanometer and the corresponding complementary wavelength, and if you produce an LED by fabricating a chip inside, producing these two wavelengths, then you will get maximum luminous efficiency. So if you come to the construction of dichromatic sources, you can see that it is similar to that of the nitride LED sources. Okay, so you will have a ohmic contact here, two of them. This is of tin or gold or nickel. This is of nickel and aluminum ohmic contact. So this is where you give the supply plus and negative. Okay, you have a sapphire substrate over which there is a nucleation layer, over which there is an N gallium layer. Okay, and the important thing is there are two active layers, first one and second one. So this is active layer 1, this is active layer 2. So active layer 1 will produce a wavelength of 460 nanometer, and active layer 2 will produce a wavelength of 520 nanometer, which means within this single wafer, you will get two different wavelengths, and they are separated by a N-type gallium nitride semiconductor, and over that there is a P-type aluminum gallium nitride, and there is a P-type gallium nitride. Okay, the 460 nanometer is basically blue, and 520 nanometer is basically green. So this is in a single chip, because of which it is a monolithic gallium indium nitride. So the spectra exhibit two emission bands, one centered at 465 nanometer and one at 525 nanometer, because you have something here. There are two different activities, and you should understand that there's a quantum well. All the other things that we have discussed regarding nitrides is applicable to this, except that there is two active layers. There's a quantum well. There's a the electron will spontaneously jump from conduction band to the valence band, emitting radiation. But because there are two active layers, the energy band gap of these two layers are different, which will produce two different types of lights. As the excitation density is varied, the two peak positions do not change. Means if you impart more charge, which is basically the excitation, if you give high voltage or low voltage, it will not change the wavelength it is being generated. That is why it is saying that two peak position does not change. However, the ratio of the peak intensities changes with the excitation power density, which means if you give, let's say, 5 milliamp current, okay, it will still produce blue and green, and the blue power might be something around, let's say, 1 watt, and green is also, let's say, around 0.5 watt, assume. Now if I increase this to, let's say, 10 milliamps, the blue might give a power output of 2 watt, and the green might give a power output of only, let's say, 0.75 watt. So the power output or the peak intensity will change. It is not proportionally changing, it will change in a different manner for each of the colors. Now, the possible recombination path of an electron in the blue quantum well are either direct radiative recombination in the blue quantum well or tunneling to the green quantum well with subsequent radiative recombination. Since you have two active layers, there is first quantum well here, there is a second quantum well here. And remember, they are of two different sizes, which means they have two different wavelengths. Okay. Sorry. Two different wavelengths. Now, it is possible that when you apply the electric field, the electron can tunnel to the green quantum well, and it can jump to spontaneous emission. But the other way, it is not possible. Okay, so the deeper one is basically, I think it will be green, and the lower one will be blue. So it can tunnel to here, but once it reaches here at the bottom, it cannot tunnel to here because there is no energy states available because there is a band gap. Okay. So electrons and holes can tunnel from the blue quantum well to the green quantum well and recombine the radiativity. Okay. However, once in the green quantum well, carriers cannot tunnel back to the blue quantum well due to the higher energy of this quantum well. Okay, so that means you have two quantum wells here. Okay, now it can tunnel from here to here, it can occupy a position here, but it cannot tunnel back here because this is band gap. Okay, so it will reach the green and it will give spontaneous emission in green. Okay, so that is regarding the working. So if you look at the characteristics of this LED, you have wavelength here, the emission intensity is here. Okay, so if you look at here at around this, which is around 450 or something around 450 nanometer, there's a peak. And there is one more peak around, I think, 520 nanometer. There are two different peaks, and this indicates the intensity or the excitation, how much current you are supplying. Okay, so we have already seen that depending on the excitation, the power or intensity output will vary for both of them, right? So the two emission peaks are observed with sender wavelengths at about 450 nanometer and 520 nanometer. The blue peak is more intense than the green peak, which can be attributed to the higher quantum efficiency of blue quantum wells compared to green quantum wells. So we have seen already this, that the blue quantum wells will have higher efficiency. So you have two peaks here at 450 and 520 nanometers. Okay, so basically, which means that it will emit two different radiations of blue and green, and blue will have higher efficiency than compared to green. That is about dichromatic source. Let's look at trichromatic source. So what is the problem with dichromatic sources? Why can't we stick to dichromatic source? The main difficulty in dichromatic source is to generate high quality light. High quality light, as I said earlier, will depend on many factors, and one of them is CRI, color rendering index. Dichromatic sources has very poor color rendering index. So you cannot use it for any purpose where you need to have high quality light. Instead, we'll go for trichromatic sources where the high quality light can be generated by mixing or adding three primary colors. This is called as trichromatic, or more than three colors. Okay. So which are all these colors? So we usually mix 450 nanometer, 540 nanometer, and 610 nanometer, and this will give high quality source. So this is a theoretical peak wavelength. We say that if you mix 450 nanometer, 540 nanometer, 610 nanometer, it will produce high quality source. Now the problem is it practically feasible? Can we generate in a single chip? Can we generate all the three wavelengths? That is the question. Okay, and the individual emission bands have had broad spectral width. Okay, so all this have the spectrum. If you plot frequency versus intensity, then your spectrum looks like this. You should have as narrow as possible this spectrum. If you have a spectrum something like this, okay, then it means it will produce wide range of lights. If you have a narrow spectrum like this, then you can see it will produce one frequency pretty high with higher intensity, which is desirable. The full width of half maximum of the phosphor emitters exceeded 50 nanometers. So this was an experimental setup in which there's a phosphor emitter. So instead of nitride, we'll use a phosphide, indium gallium phosphide, for example, indium gallium phosphide instead of indium gallium nitride. Okay, so it says that the full width at half maximum. What do you mean by full width at half maximum? We have told this earlier. If your spectral is like this, so let's say this is the maximum peak, and let's say this is the half of that. So this is 1, this is 0.5. If you consider this width, which is the full width at half maximum, so half maximum is 0.5. You take the full width at half maximum, so you should have as narrow as possible so that you will have more light of particular frequency. So this exceeded 50 nanometer. Now you can also consider spectral width less than 50 nanometer, which means you have narrow emission lines than phosphorates. So it is possible to construct full width half maximum less than 50 nanometer. Okay. So if you look at the emission spectra, you see that at these wavelengths, this is for gallium indium nitride, this is also for gallium indium nitride, this is aluminum gallium indium phosphide. So there are, you can actually mix all these three to produce three different wavelengths, and you see that the full width half maximum for this this is around 445 nanometer, and this is around 605 nanometer, is pretty high. While that of this is, let's say this is 525 nanometer, is very high. But you can still make use of this spectrum to construct LEDs which will emit 3 different radiations, which will finally give you a white light. Okay. So the trichromatic emission spectrum of a white light source is made of 3 types of LEDs emitting at 455 nanometer, 525 nanometer, and 605 nanometer. That is evident from this figure, because you can see that each of these materials will produce different lights or different frequencies, different colors at this different wavelengths. Okay. And you can see there is the half width maximum is specified in terms of K into T, where K is a Boltzmann constant, T is the temperature. The CRI is about 85 for this wavelength combination, which is of very high value, with the luminous efficiency of radiation being 320 nanometer lumens per watt, which is favorable. So this has high luminous efficiency and high CRI. Okay. The experimentally determined full width at half maximum of the spectra at room temperature is 5.5 kT, 7.9 kT, and 2.5 kT for gallium indium nitride blue, gallium indium nitride green, and aluminum gallium nitride orange emitter. Okay, so this we have seen from this figure. So this is actually the full width half maximum. Similarly for this is the full width half maximum. Similarly for this is the full width half maximum. Why we are looking at that? Because we want this peak to be as narrow as possible, so that you will have the emission at this exact wavelength. So if this, so you can see that this value is 2.5 kT, this is 7.9 kT, and 2.5 kT is less than 7.9 kT, because of which 2.5 kT is narrow, and this is broad. Narrow means you will have almost the exact wavelength. Broad means we have larger number of wavelengths. We want it to be narrow so that you can get the exact color. The full width at half maximum of blue, green, and orange sources are 23.2 nanometer, 44.3 nanometer, and 18.6 nanometer respectively. Okay, so these are the values for the full width half maximum. You should understand the concept of full width half maximum, but there is a catch. So to attain a high efficiency of radiation, sources near the fringes of visible spectrum, that means fringes means the boundaries, deep red and deep violet, should be avoided. So you cannot use deep red and deep violet when you're using a trichromatic source. Okay, it should be as far as from the boundary of the visible light, so that you get exact light. Fine. Now, if you look at the temperature dependence, okay, because the LEDs that we use, once it produces light, the light will finally end up creating more heat. In other words, the chip which is inside the LED will need to withstand high amount of temperature. You should not change the wavelength depending on the temperature. So temperature dependence on trichromatic LED is a very important one. The relatively small range of wavelengths that enables a high color rendering capability raises the question as to the stability of trichromatic sources with respect to junction and ambient temperature. Okay, so the trichromatic LED will generate wavelengths of relatively small range, because you have from 455 to 605 nanometer. And even if you change the wavelength by 100 nanometer, because of change in temperature, it will generate a different color. Generating a different color means it will not now generate a white LED. It will be unstable. It will generate an LED color of different lambda, which is finally means you will have a different color. So it is important to know whether by changing the ambient temperature, which is the temperature around the LED, or the junction temperature, which is the temperature on the junction, is it stable? So it is known that emission power, peak wavelength, and the spectral width depend on temperature, and each of these quantities have a different temperature coefficient. Okay, so we should not change. It should not change the emission power. It should not change the peak wavelength, or it should not change the spectral width as the temperature changes. But all these have a different temperature coefficients. The optical output power of LEDs is temperature dependent in described by exponential function and a characteristic temperature T1. Okay, so the power output is dependent on the characteristic temperature, and there's an exponential function for that. So what is that? So the light power output of an LED is given by P at 300 Kelvin is exponential, which is basically e raised to T minus 300 K by T1. T1 is the characteristic temperature, which will be defined. Okay, so depending on the value of T, you can calculate how much is the output power. So this is the power at 300 Kelvin. Okay, you can scale the power for different temperature by varying this T. T1 will be some value which will be specified in the datasheet, and if you change T, you can see how the power varies. So as a result of these temperature dependencies, the chromaticity point of multiple white LED source changes with temperature. So what I mean by chromaticity point, we have already seen this diagram. This diagram is something like this. Okay, we see that the white light is somewhere here. This is X, this is Y. Now, when the temperature changes, you can see that this point might change somewhere here, which is green. So depending on the temperature, it can change the chromaticity point. And coming to the last topic, which is generation of white light by tetrachromatic and pentachromatic sources. Tetrachromatic means you have 4 sources, pentachromatic means you have 5 sources. So tetrachromatic and pentachromatic use 4 and 5 sources respectively. The color rendering index, which is called as CRI, of polychromatic source. Polychromatic means greater than 2, or I would say greater than 3. Generally increases with number of sources. So if you have more number of sources or active layers in your chip, to make it tetrachromatic or pentachromatic or hexachromatic, the CRI, which is the color rendering capability, the way in which you can see the color properly in the light, will increase. The luminous efficiency generally decreases with increasing the number of sources. But the problem is luminous efficiency means the intensity of the light will decrease with increasing number of sources. So basically you can say the color rendering index and luminous efficiency of tetrachromatic sources are generally higher and lower than those of trichromatic sources. So color rendering index is higher for tetrachromatic and luminous efficiency is lower for tetrachromatic. Due to the greater number of wavelength choices, the color temperatures of such sources can be adjusted more liberally without compromising the color rendering capability of the source. So since you have for tetrachromatic and pentachromatic, you have a very large number of wavelengths which can be fabricated. By adjusting the wavelength choices, okay, the temperature dependencies can be adjusted without changing any of the color rendering capability. Okay, so this is so basically you can say you have 2 advantages of this polychromatic sources, which is basically you have high color rendering index, and you can adjust the wavelength choice so that it will not impact the CRI. And there is one disadvantage, which is basically it has low luminous efficiency. So these are the basic advantages and disadvantages of tetrachromatic and pentachromatic sources. We are not going to look at any of the structures in this one because it is more complicated. Okay. Okay, so that's all for this presentation. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. So I took this from this book, Light Emitting Diodes by Fred Schubert, and I took that chromaticity diagram from Wiki. Okay. So if you have any doubts, you can ask me, or I'll take the attendance. Okay, so I'll call the numbers. You can tell me you're present or not. So I'll call first A batch. Aishwarya,
Present.
Akshay, Anaga,
Present, sir.
Anandarasan, Anandarasan illa. Archana,
Present, sir.
Arjun CP,
Present, sir.
Adira K,
Present, sir.
Adira M, Adira M, illa. Boni,
Present, sir.
Chandni C,
Present, sir.
Shahana C,
Present, sir.
Vismaya PV,
Present, sir.
Vaiga,
Present, sir.
Geedu,
Present, sir.
Harsha,
Present, sir.
Bibin.
Present, sir.
Okay. A batchil appam absent Akshay PN, Anandakrishnan, Adira M. Okay.
Present,
Adira
sir.
M undo.
Adivent, sir.
Okay. Sure. Fine. Ini let me go to. Okay, batch 2, Ajmal K Salim. Ajmal, Anjana,
Present, sir.
Anu,
Present, sir.
Arjun,
Present, sir.
Adira K,
Present, sir.
Fatima Tasni,
Present, sir.
Hiba, Hiba P. Okay, Gina,
Present, sir.
Irshad. Okay, Irshad present. Okay. Shabir, Shabirilla. Shimil,
Present, sir.
Rifa,
Present, sir.
Salahuddin,
Present, sir.
okay, Shabib,
Sir, present.
Shaharban, absent now. Shilni, Shilni undo. Shilni ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നല്ലോ. Okay. Sunita,
Present, sir.
Asha,
Present, sir.
Adira TT,
Present, sir.
Sona Fatima,
Present, sir.
Sudhi.
Present,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. Shilni ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നല്ലോ. Okay. So ഇതിനകത്ത് ആബ്സെന്റ് അജ്മൽ, ഹിബ, ഷബീർ, ഷഹർബാൻ, ഷിൽനി. Okay.
Sir, ഹിബണ്ട്.
ഹിബ ഉണ്ടോ? Okay.
ആ.
Okay. Fine. So we'll meet on Wednesday. I'll upload this materials. Okay. Thank you. ഇതുപോലെ മറ്റേ ഞാൻ മാർക്ക് അപ്ലോഡ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. ആർക്കെങ്കിലും എന്തെങ്കിലും കൺഫ്യൂഷൻ ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ you can mail me. And if you want individual question mark also, you can mail me. I'll provide you the individual marks for the questions. Okay. Okay. Thank you.